Anita, we're here at the Salzburg Global Seminar talking about breaking the glass ceiling, and you're an expert on networks and networking and their role in this. You told a wonderful story about the importance of networks to us downstairs. Would you tell that again?
You know, in so many ways, the real premise of the story was how women undermine or underestimate the true value of networks. And the story was that I recently had occasion to talk with a group of extremely talented law students, and they were all very focused on human capital issues, the soft skill sides of human capital, what to wear, how to wear their dress, what to say, all the things that they thought would make them more successful, and yet none of them were asking questions about how to connect to people who could help them be successful.
So what is the role of networks and networking in helping women break the glass ceiling?
I think it is absolutely important for women to recognize that talent being equal, what determines relative success among people is their connections to others who can help open doors, give access to information, and ultimately give opportunities that are economic in nature.
Do women have different kinds of networks than men, or do we use our networks differently? What's the difference?
Both are true. I think women are not as intentional about utilizing the networks that they have in place, and so even if they have networks that look like men, the way they access the nodes on that network, if you will, look a little differently. But it is also true that men are probably more strategic in developing the kind of networks that are necessarily important for economic advantage in society. Women tend to focus less on developing those kinds of connections.
So what advice do you have for women for developing their networks and using them more effectively? Because that, I think, may be the other key, that we don't know how to use them so well.
The answer to the question, how do you use them, lies in the question, for what do you need them? And so for women to be very clear about what they need those networks for necessarily gives definition to the kinds of networks they need. I suggest to women that they think about having networks that are fairly diverse, that give them access to information that is beyond their own reach. Women tend to have very clustered networks, so they're dense but in homogeneous situations in the same company, within the same community, and so the information they get is great information, but it tends to be redundant information. In order for you to maximize your ability to know about opportunities, you have to have people who can bring you information about opportunities from lots of different places. So thinking about how you connect beyond your comfort zone or familiarity or frame of reference is a really important thing for women to do.
Mm-hmm. Would you talk a little bit about what sociologists call the strength of weak ties and why that's important?
Absolutely. Sociologists tend to divide social capital, which is embedded in our social networks, into weak ties and strong ties. And strong ties are really located in what we know of as bonding capital, which is the kind of connection we have to our family, to our very good friends, to our communities, the people with whom we go to church. That's where a lot of women's social capital lies. Men, it has been shown, tend to focus more on what's known as bridging capital. And those are weaker ties. They're not people that you talk to very often, but they're people who are on your radar screen. You can access them. They're willing to give you access to the other people in their network, and that's really where the economic advantage of social capital comes into play.
So weaker ties provide more job opportunities, more board seats. Is that the gist?
By definition, because they tend to be broader in scope, meaning that they give you access to information in a much larger context.
I see. So tell me a little bit, are women learning these things finally, and how do you see the future playing out on women's progress in the next 5-6 years?
I think the answer is yes. Women are definitely learning them, and one of the first things women are learning is that you can look to your bonding capital as a first source for economic information. So that's a really good, important first step to take. And once you become comfortable accessing your networks in that way, it then is so much easier and more natural to begin to look for more diverse nodes to expand your network.
Okay. Another question that's come up is we're here with people from more than 20 countries. Are these issues, do they have enough commonality among the countries for us to be discussing networking?
I think they do. I mean, certainly where people are in their professional ladders or career pathways will have some implications for the kinds of networks they may need. So I think there's some cultural specificity that needs to contextualize this conversation. On the other hand, the basic premise of networks, which is you have relationships with people who can be helpful to you, and you should not be shy to access that, probably cuts across all cultures.
Mm-hmm. And I can't let you go without asking a technology question, actually, if I might, and that is, how effective have internet networks proven to be for advancing people?
I think internet networks have been really important primarily for social connection. So people are connected with communities of interest, which oftentimes meets an interest that people don't have either the time or the inclination or the ability to do in the kind of face-to-face interactions that once were more prevalent. There are lots of internet sites that boast themselves as also offering social capital that leads to economic advantage. My sense is the jury is still out on how effective those are.
So we'll see how that plays out.
Networks are about trust and reciprocity, and it's hard to develop a lot of that over the internet.
Very true. Thank you very much, Anita.
You're very welcome.
Interesting.